Well, would you believe it? I'm almost sad, but it's true. This is the last time for Season 3 of The Living World. I'll be giving you guys a big sum up on the general patch notes and changes that went in with an episode. Today, we have One Path Ends. This is the finale for Season 3, and as you would expect from a finale, it's bloody huge. There's also an enormous amount of undocumented changes. So yes, today we did get a lot more story. You won't find any spoilers on any of that story in this specific video. I'll keep that away, and I would hope you guys do so in the comments as well. We won't talk about the story itself. That will come a little bit later. It is absolutely excellent, though. There is also, and I don't consider this a spoiler at this point, there is an expansion announcement, and there is stuff going on with that, which is also another huge big ticket item I won't be talking about here. We won't have any spoilers about that. We'll let people get through and play it and digest it for themselves. But today, what I will be doing is showing you guys some background footage, which is basically spoiler-free, of the new map, well, the kind of events that we can find there, the currencies and things like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about all the feature changes and content additions that go into the game that don't really fall within those original two big things I talked about. And even though we've culled all of those massive topics away, there's still a huge amount going on. What you read in the title is true. We didn't just get one legendary on this release like we did for all of the others. We actually got 2 weapons and, yeah, an entirely new category. We got legendary trinkets, a feature so big I honestly thought you'd sell an expansion on it, not just throw it out in a random patch. But that's what they did, and it's crazy. So let's dive in. All right, let's start with some of the cool stuff. Like I just mentioned, 2 new legendaries. What's really interesting about this patch is there hasn't been any press or like early media that's got in there in dev environments and got a lot of footage of how these legendaries look. So on previous patches, you know, I could be showing you guys right now, hey, here's how the new legendary would look, here's the animation, this is what Shushadu was like, and so on. We actually don't really have that right now. So as of me making this video at least, they're a bit of a mystery. The hammer is called Shara, and it's much more muted in design. Maybe you've been looking for that personally. A lot of people really like big and flashy and shiny. The hammer certainly isn't within that ballpark, and I think that might get it some enemies, but also it could be really good based on, you know, the flashy effects that go with it. We haven't had a good look at the footfalls, and we haven't had a good look at how it paints our arm, and we haven't seen what kind of projectiles might be attached to it, so I guess that will come in due time. The other weapon, which is even more mysterious, you guys might remember if you've been following my channel, they teased the hammer a little bit before the release. They did another weapon! They did a sword. I gotta say, I'm really happy with this. I had been saying for a long time, please do 2 legendary weapons for the finale. It's that bit more. You got to go that extra mile. I was really hoping for sword plus great sword, but sword and hammer is awesome. They did do a sword. Now, it's called the Shining Blade, and those who have played the story may recognize what I believe is it at the same time. But again, we haven't seen too many of the effects. Could look fantastic depending on whether you like Bolt or not. Bolt is very exaggerated and crazy in its effects, and specifically the sound effects I know piss some people off. So it's great to have a replacement for that. So yeah, 2 more of the Gen 2 legendaries dumped in at the same time. Very, very exciting, and I can't wait for people to make them in the Forge and see what they look like. It's a bit of that 2012 magic we've got there, where there's still an element of mystery to them. So, that's one of the big things. I'll talk about the legendary trinkets in a second. Let's go through the actual patch notes that the devs posted, and at the very least what they said. Now, here's a weird note. I'll pick out my highlights, essentially, as I always do. There will be some skips. If you guys want to see the full list, it is in the top of the description down below. But so, next note, I found this one quite interesting. Players can now turn in mid-air while jumping. Well, that's really weird because we've always been able to turn in mid-air. We've always been able to guide ourselves and direct ourselves in mid-air while jumping. So I figure maybe what the devs mean is we can jump and about face midair, like you can see me doing here on the new map, in one of the more gorgeous areas of the map, by the way, which so far has blown me away. It's got so much cool lore in it. I'll try not to get too far ahead of myself. So maybe that's what they meant, or I'm not entirely sure, and I'm wondering what you guys think about that. But weird little change there. We have the new map added, we have the new story added, and the patch notes do get pretty quickly into explaining there is a new fractal. So this fractal is called the Shattered Observatory. Up until now, all we had was a very minor teaser as to its existence. Well, from the title of it and vague information, it would seem that the Shattered Observatory is the hub world for fractals, you know, where you choose your various fractals to go to. We've seen a couple of different iterations where Dessa works from. It seems that it's a version of that we actually get to play as a combat fractal. Really cool idea, because Dessa if you've been following the Fractal storyline, has kind of become a little bit less of a character lately, maybe. So the thought we'll get a Fractal dealing with her, maybe the origins of how she got into the Fractals of the Mist. Oh, I'm really excited. I have not played that as of making this video, but it looks excellent. It's called the Shattered Observatory, like the Nightmare Fractal, which came very recently. It also not only has, you know, its regular bundling in with Fractals and Fractal rewards, but it has its own section in the achievements. It has its own meta, and just like with the Nightmare Fractal, if you complete this meta achievement and you finish this at scale 100, as in you are the best of the best and you do the final one, it does seem to unlock a challenge mode. Check this out. On the patch notes, the devs write this very ominously, that the continued perseverance of adventurers has caught the eye of the Harbinger. That's got to mean a challenge mode, right? And I actually think that they did a hot fix very quickly after release, disabling the challenge mode loop, because there would have been some problem with it they're trying to work out. But that is so cool to me. The challenge mode Nightmare Fractal was one of my highlights of all of Living World Season 3. And to go out on a finale with one of these as well, brilliant. You guys will get dedicated videos on that, at least one on the story, and hopefully as well one on the mechanics, as long as they are interesting enough. So new Fractal, you know, there's a whole other world of things to talk about. Moving quickly on, back to kind of legendaries. They did a lot of little tweaks and changes revolving around legendary stuff, and if any of this excites you, it's good, because legendaries take a long time to get, and it means a lot of playtime in Guild Wars 2, a lot of hanging out with communities in Guild Wars 2, and just excitement as we do this next wait for the next content that comes in, which of course is going to be some very interesting content. So they've done a lot of legendary stuff. We've got 2 new weapons we can go for. We also have Ad Infinitum. Now this is the Fractals legendary back piece, and you guys will remember some dev posts, maybe, talking about its gliding animation and how its gliding animation isn't quite what they originally wanted and stuff. Well, that's been updated now. They say in the patch notes that it has a new animation that is more legendary, and it does look cool. There's some footage in the background for you guys here. Again, me gliding around on the new map, Siren's Rest, and I do like it. It spreads out a bit more. Even on my Asura, I think that this is a better animation. It's pretty nice, so maybe that will encourage some people to get that. I think more likely than not, people will try out the new Fractal at low scales, because they're easy at low scales. Any noob can do it. Anyone is welcome, and they'll just slowly progress their way up until eventually they're like, yeah, I'll go for the backpack. But that was a nice little change, and several other legendaries had changes too. So many weapons don't have projectile effects, because maybe in the past it didn't seem to make sense to give them projectile effects, but they actually deserve them. So for example, the original hammer in the game doesn't have a projectile effect on it, because really, what hammers use projectiles? But the truth is, hammers can use projectiles, especially now that Rev is in the game, and I believe that the Guardians always had one on the skill 3. So what they actually did was they looked at weapons like this, and they have had updates. So Meteorologicus was one of them. If you guys have a look in the background here, this is what it looks like when I'm firing earth projectiles with my Meteorologicus, and the animations are so much more flashy. This is a pretty substantive update to several of the original legendary weapons, which I'm really excited to give away to you guys soon, and I think is pretty exciting, actually. It makes me reassess quite a few of the original ones, and maybe even that will hook me into getting a few more. I have to draw a contrast here between this tiny part of this huge patch we've got right now. Once upon a time, guys, in the Living World Season 1 days, the fact that legendaries had animation updates was kind of the bulk of a patch and kind of the main event. And nowadays, it's just like a minor little thing we mentioned, oh, they did this, and we move very quickly on. But so, several projectile updates on legendaries. Another legendary-related change is a new raiding achievement that's come in the game. I think there's a title attached to it too. So you guys will remember there's kind of these ridiculous legendary achievements. There's one for getting 5 legendaries, which back in 2012 seemed really hard to do. There's one for getting 2 of the same legendary called Twice Told Legend, which by the way they fixed a bug on. There's been tons of bug fixes. Well, they've done a similar one for raiding now. We have legendary armor, of course. Now most people will raid and get 6 pieces of legendary armor, like they'll get the full medium set or they'll get the full light set and they'll be done with it. There is an achievement for going for the rather ridiculous goal of getting all 18 pieces of Envoy armor. If you get every single piece, and that is a pretty big mountain to climb, you'll get an achievement. I think some people will look at this and say, this is stupid, that's way too much grind, but, you know, Guild Wars has a history of doing objectives like this, and I like achievements like this. I don't know whether I'll ever have all 18 pieces of legendary armor. I maybe don't raid enough or collect enough insights at this point to do that, but it is cool, and I think that the really hardcore raiders will find some joy in that, and again, it's something nice to go for. We had a huge amount of people who only really raided because they wanted the armor, and then as soon as they got one set, that was it, it's done. Well, now they've got another goal, a real tangible thing to go for. So lots of legendary stuff happening. Now, I'll skip ahead. There is a huge amount of undocumented changes that have come in on this patch, and one of them is what's in the title, is legendary trinkets. So on top of all this other legendary stuff we've got, if you actually go in game now, as you can see here on the achievement panel, you'll notice under the legendary section, we have legendary weapons, backpacks, but here, check it out, a new section, legendary trinkets. And I've already said it, I think that this is the kind of thing you'd expect to come with like Dueling 500 or, you know, something you'd sell an expansion on. They've just dropped it in now. You guys might remember several AMAs ago, the developers were talking about the idea of having achievements that broadly stretch over all of Living World Season 3. The way we've experienced this season is each update had its own collection of meta achievements and items and things, and they were very self-contained, but there was no like bridging achievements. There was no achievement that required you to do a ton of everything. That's what the legendary trinkets seem to be. Just like with the two weapons, there's really, as far as I'm aware, no footage of whether these have any kind of cosmetic effects on them or something. As you guys know, trinkets in Guild Wars 2 typically don't have visual effects unless they have auras in them, where there have also been changes, by the way. So whether these will have some kind of cosmetic to them, I don't know. I would like to think that they do, to be truly legendary items, but I would say there is a non-zero chance that these are not cosmetic at all. They just give us stat selectable trinkets. Obviously, having a full set of these would be very exciting. I don't know whether it includes the amulet. I don't know whether it's including rings or just accessories for now, but over the coming weeks, as people start to earn these and go through these very large achievements, they are legendaries ultimately. They are going to be hard to get. As we get more information about them, hopefully I will fill that in for you guys. But yeah, there's just so many tangible new goals to go for in Guild Wars 2 as of this patch, and a lot of them revolve around legendaries and so forth. So before we go on to something that I just mentioned a second ago, there have been a lot of bug fixes. As always, when I do these videos, I would find it incredibly boring to just read from a list. There was this bug fix and this bug fix and this bug fix, but I will point out that raids had a lot of encounter fixes. A lot of the legendary collections have had more fixes. I find that very fitting for the finale, because that was one of the sore points of Heart of Thorns, that a lot of these legendary collections had issues with them, and they seem largely resolved here. Even areas of core Tyria that we haven't thought about for ages, like the Shatterer, have had fixes too. Apparently there were bugs in the pre-events for the Shatterer that have been fixed, and that's nice. There was actually a weird thing that got fixed in this patch as well that I'd mentioned on a stream recently. You know how sometimes you get separate heirloom seed pouches and they don't stack? It's because technically they're different items. It's just the devs named them the same thing and gave them the same icon. And I was saying on a stream recently, that sucks. Why don't they just name one of them slightly different? They shouldn't both be heirloom seed pouches. Maybe one of them could just be an heirloom pouch or a precious seed pouch or something, and then maybe even go further and change the icon too. I mentioned that just offhandedly a little while ago on a stream, and hey, they seem to have done exactly that on this patch. So the heirloom seed pouches, there's now 3 different varieties of heirloom seed pouches, and they'll be more clearly done. So lots of nice little changes like that, and fun things that I think we shouldn't take for granted, but so often we do. Let's talk about auras. Now, this is very cool. This did make it into the patch notes, and I'm incredibly excited about it because I just bought a ton of auras from the trading post to offer to the community in a big giveaway you guys will see coming up very shortly. So literally early in the week, I bought a ton of auras, and there has been a patch. So let's talk about auras, what they are. If you guys are unaware, auras are upgrade component items that you can slot into gear and will give you some kind of global flashy effect, right? So the ghostly infusion is a great example. Any piece of ascended gear you equip, you can infuse, and if you put the ghostly infusion in it, the ghostly infusion will give you a ghostly aura around you, and you can even stack tons of them up and double up, triple up the effect. There have been lots of auras. Many auras are attached to collections, many of the recent ones. So there are 2 Super Adventure Box auras. One of them's blue, one of them's red, and they give you like little Super Adventure Boxy effects. The most recent Winter's Day, I believe, had an aura, or at least had a shoulder piece which had an aura attached to it. The devs have had lots of different ways of giving us these auras. Now, some of the earliest methods for giving us auras were that they were actually upgrade components in exotic trinkets. Now, most players don't like wearing exotic gear these days, particularly players with so much money in their pocket they're going for auras. which are incredibly prestigious items. Most of them don't like wearing exotic stuff. So we have, for example, in the Silver Waste, a very rare chance to get an Orichalcum amulet. And in that amulet comes the preserved queen bee. And anytime you slot the queen bee into exotic gear, you get this really cool effect where bees follow you, you get a bee sound effect, you get a honey splat when you land on the ground. It's an excellent item, but A, it's very rare, and B, a lot of people don't like wearing it, or didn't like wearing it, because it forced them into exotic stuff. Not just exotic stuff, but celestial stuff. What Guild Wars 2 has needed for a long time is items like the preserved queen bee, the Chuck egg sack, probably the single rarest, most valuable item in the entire game. These items needed updating. They needed to become infusions so that they could go in ascended gear and be on par with the ghostly infusion, and so that we could select their stats and stuff. It would be really lovely if a contemporary patch changed that, wouldn't it? Well, guess what the finale just did? It did it, guys! It's amazing! And so the prices have just spiked massively, and luckily I managed to buy some early. It was absolutely brilliant. So you can now turn your queen bee into a proper infusion and wear it on any kind of gear you like. It suddenly has a lot more value. It goes even further than that, though, guys. They did that for the Chuck egg sack, and also those who paid very close attention will remember that when Heart of Thorns was coming out, the Chuck egg sack was being added for the Chuck Garant event, but they also had two other items. One of them for finishing the VB meta at night, and the other one was an incredibly rare drop from finishing the Auric Basin meta event. Well, the Verdant Brink one still is nowhere to be seen, but in this patch they added a new item. An item just like the Chuck egg sack. Something that potentially will be as valuable and rare as the most valuable single rare item in all of Guild Wars 2. Another potentially 10,000 gold value prize. And you get it from completing the Auric Basin meta event. It's in some weird ways kind of nice that this didn't exist back when AB multi-loot used to happen, because people would run that event so much that it probably would have flooded the economy a bit. But now people have left Auric Basin, but this really crazy ultra rare secret drop has been added, and none of us have ever really seen what that effect is like, and it's now come into the game. So if you don't want to go for one of these new legendaries, you can go farm AB again and get this crazy new item there that's got all the quality of life we've always kind of wanted for this stuff. So huge aura update, really fantastic, and you can really see the slant of what they've done here. They've given people really awesome goals and lots of things to look forward to. So for the main patch notes, that's pretty much it. Then they go into Blackline stuff. You know me, I don't really like talking about Blackline stuff too much. There is a new set of Abaddon weapons. They've got the Blackline chest is turned into the Return to Ore chest, and they've swapped stuff out. So some classic items are back, like Bonfire Boost and things, I think. And Dwayner weapons are back as well, because obviously we've returned to Ore, and there's a lot of stuff about the gods in this patch. So that's the official notes. There are a couple more undocumented changes as well that I want to talk about. Trinkets was one of them. Another couple of things that I've really liked about this patch that you guys might want to pay attention to. In Living World Season 3, we've got these tomes that give us instant access to the maps. But if you've bought one every patch, you've now got 6 items, and they're really kind of frustrating. The finale has added a tome. And if you buy the tome, you can put all of your other portal scrolls into it, and you'll have a single condensed item that can take you to any Living World Season 3 map on any character you like, especially if it's in, say, an account slot. So that's very cool. The new map also has several new food recipes that you probably want to pay attention to. There aren't any new stats in the new map like we saw with Lake Doric, but new foods I think is still pretty exciting as well. Areas of the economy, of course, have shifted with that, and people are looking at what might be new and what might be worthwhile. Here's a very cool undocumented change, though. There are new core Tyria Masteries that have been added to the game. So this has been a bit of a thorn in the side of the Heart of Thorns Days 2, which they've also cured with this final update. So it used to be for a long time that if you wanted to max out your core Tyria Masteries and thus earn spirit shards, you had to get a lot of mastery points, but the points were very rare. And specifically, you kind of had to do Living World Season 2. I think there was maybe a slight opportunity you could get around it, perhaps, but I think really you were reliant on doing Living World Season 2. And a lot of people don't have Living World Season 2, and they don't want to spend the gems to get Living World Season 2. So the devs rectified that here. There are 9 new core Tyria Masteries to get in the game. They are places of power. Before this patch, there were no core Tyria places of power. So these are like skill challenges. You find them hidden around late level maps, so places like Timberline Falls, around the Orion maps, I believe, late game areas, and you can find these special communes in interesting areas of the map. I don't know whether the devs have invented new areas to explore to find these places of power, or just dumped them in really weirdly out of the way places that have never given any players incentive to travel to. You can see some footage in the background right now of me getting one in Timberline Falls, for example, at a place on that map you've never really been. So everyone should care about this, if you care about AP at least, because hey, it's more AP, and that is a pretty big shift. That makes core Tyria Masteries very easy to get now, and to get your spirit shards. There's a big difference between veteran accounts and new accounts, I've learned lately, when it comes to spirit shards, and this alleviates a lot of pressure on new players before they can, you know, max that stuff out, and kind of eliminate Season 2 from the running. In some ways that might be sad, because hey, ArenaNet earns a buck if they can sell you Season 2, but maybe one day when they add Season 1, it would just feel weird to have all of them bundled into Season 2 anyway. I don't know, I think people will be really happy with this. It's a new section of the UI, more stuff to go for. And finally, one other big change, and I feel like I'm almost talking like a mod, about a mod, you know, for a single player game when I say this. Lindsay Murdoch's crafting overhaul has gone live. So, the crafting tab, none of this appeared on the official documented patch notes, but everything she has been working on to improve crafting and storage has now gone in. You can again see the footage in the background there. There's loads of new sections, tons of stuff you couldn't deposit as collectibles before. You can now. Apparently there's space been put into it for future things, and generally it's all laid out in a beautiful, wonderful way, and I think everyone can sigh, give a big breath of relief here, as now many of those annoying items you can now just deposit. Especially myself as a scribe, I'm really looking forward to making use of this. And so that's all gone in with the finale too, and we weren't even sure as a community whether that would quite make it for the finale, and it did. So there you go, guys. What a patch. Absolutely ridiculous. Huge amount of stuff going on. If you've seen the new legendaries, if you've got information and stuff like that, please do let me know down there. You excited about this, or does it feel like it's all too many hardcore goals for you? They do, of course, have all the meta achievements and regular and standard stuff for the more casual, fair weather players that out there too. I like seeing these longer goals, though, that we might like to latch onto if we potentially have to wait a little bit longer for some kind of expansion stuff. But from the end of the patch, it seems like the expansion really is closer than we think. I guess I'll have to do some videos about that for you guys very soon. And they will be spoiler rich. Be aware. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'm going to get back in there. See you soon.